In the scorching heat of a Texas summer, Detective Maria Santos thought she had seen everything in her 15 years on the force. Drug busts, gang wars, missing persons cases that haunted her dreams. But nothing prepared her for the phone call that came at 3:47 a.m. on July 15th, 2019. "We've got a situation at the abandoned warehouse on 5th Street. The dispatch crackled through her phone. "Multiple casualties, suspected drug operation gone wrong. And, Detective, there's something else. Something we've never seen before." When Maria arrived at the scene, yellow tape already surrounded the building like a bright warning. But what caught her attention wasn't the chaos of police cars or the forensic team setting up their equipment. It was the sound coming from inside the warehouse, a low, haunting howl that made every officer on the scene stop what they were doing and listen. "That's not a dog," whispered Officer Chun, his face pale in the streetlight. "That's something wild." Maria had no idea that this moment would change not only her life, but the entire approach to law enforcement in their city. She couldn't have known that inside that dark warehouse was a creature whose story would challenge everything she believed about loyalty, instinct, and the unexpected heroes that sometimes emerge from the shadows. This is the true story of Luna, a wolf-dog hybrid who shocked an entire police department and ultimately revolutionized how they approach their most dangerous cases. It's a story about trust built in the darkest moments, about an unlikely partnership that defied all logic, and about how sometimes the most extraordinary solutions come from the most unexpected places. What Maria discovered that night would test every protocol, challenge every assumption, and prove that heroes don't always wear badges. Sometimes they have 4 legs and eyes that have seen more darkness than any human should ever witness. The warehouse door creaked open, and Maria's flashlight cut through the darkness. She had no idea she was about to meet her new partner. The first thing Maria noticed when she stepped into the warehouse wasn't the 3 bodies scattered across the concrete floor or the overturned tables covered with drug paraphernalia. It was the eyes. Golden eyes that reflected her flashlight beam from somewhere deep in the shadows, watching her every move with an intelligence that made her hand instinctively move toward her service weapon. "Santos, over here," called Detective Rodriguez from across the warehouse. His voice echoed in the cavernous space, but Maria couldn't tear her gaze away from those eyes. They weren't moving, weren't threatening, just watching with a patience that seemed almost human. The crime scene told a brutal story. 3 members of the notorious Viper Gang lay dead, their bodies positioned in ways that suggested they had been running from something when they fell. But there were no gunshot wounds, no stab marks, nothing that indicated human violence. Instead, there were claw marks on the walls, deep gouges in the concrete, and a trail of destruction that led deeper into the warehouse. "Maria, you need to see this," Rodriguez insisted, his voice carrying an edge she had rarely heard in their 12 years as partners. She forced herself to look away from those golden eyes and followed the sound of his voice to the back corner of the warehouse. What she found there defied explanation. A makeshift laboratory had been set up with expensive equipment and chemical supplies, clearly designed for manufacturing synthetic drugs. But everything was destroyed, not by human hands, but by something with incredible strength and precision. Tables were overturned with surgical accuracy. Chemical containers were shattered in patterns that suggested calculated destruction rather than random violence. "The neighbors called it in around 2 a.m., Rodriguez explained, his flashlight playing over the devastation. "So they heard sounds like a war zone, then everything went quiet. When patrol arrived, they found a front door ripped off its hinges from the inside." Maria knelt beside one of the overturned tables, studying the claw marks that scored the metal surface. They were too large for a domestic dog, too precise for a wild animal driven by fear or hunger. These marks suggested intelligence, purpose, and a level of controlled aggression that sent chills down her spine. "Detective Santos." Officer Chin appeared beside them, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's something else you need to know. We found a cage in the basement. Industrial strength, the kind they use for dangerous animals. The lock wasn't picked, or shot off. It was torn apart from the inside. The three officers exchanged glances, each processing the implications. Maria's mind raced through possibilities, but none of them made sense within the context of a normal drug bust gone wrong. She had seen gang violence before, had witnessed the aftermath of territorial disputes and deals gone bad, but this was something entirely different. "Show me the cage," she said finally, though every instinct told her she wouldn't like what she found. The basement was reached by a narrow concrete staircase that descended into darkness. Their flashlights created dancing shadows on the walls as they made their way down, the air growing colder with each step. The smell hit them first, a mixture of fear, rage, and something wild that made Maria's stomach clench. The cage stood in the center of the basement, like a monument to cruelty. It was large enough to hold a person, constructed from steel bars as thick as her thumb, and equipped with a complex locking mechanism that would have challenged a professional locksmith. But the door hung open, the metal twisted and torn as if something impossibly strong had simply reached through the bars and pulled it apart. "Jesus," Rodriguez breathed, running his flashlight over the destruction. What kind of animal could do this? Inside the cage, they found evidence that painted a horrifying picture. Bowls that had held water and what might have been food, though both were overturned and dry. Chains that had been broken, their metal links scattered across the floor. And scratched into the concrete walls, dozens of marks that suggested something had been trapped here for a long time, counting days, or simply venting its frustration against its imprisonment. "Look at this," Chin called from the corner of the basement. His flashlight illuminated a stack of documents that had been scattered across the floor. Maria knelt and began gathering them, her heart sinking as she read the contents. Purchase orders for tranquilizer darts. Veterinary supplies designed for large predators. Research papers about behavioral modification in canines. And at the bottom of the pile, a contract with an exotic animal dealer in Mexico, detailing the acquisition of what was described as a wolfdog hybrid, female, approximately 2 years old, suitable for specialized training applications. They were using her, Maria said, the pieces falling into place with sickening clarity. The Vipers were using this animal to guard their operation, probably to intimidate rivals and keep people away from the warehouse. But something went wrong, Rodriguez added, studying the torn cage door. She got loose and turned on them. Maria stood up slowly, the documents clutched in her hand. Above them, somewhere in the darkness of the main warehouse, those golden eyes were still watching. She could feel them, patient and intelligent, waiting for something she couldn't yet understand. "We need to call animal control," Chin suggested, but Maria shook her head. "Not yet. I want to understand what happened here first." They climbed back up the stairs, emerging into the main warehouse where the crime scene team was beginning their work. The bodies had been photographed and would soon be removed, but the questions they left behind would take much longer to answer. Maria walked slowly toward the shadows where she had first seen those eyes, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and curiosity. The creature, Luna, according to the documents, had remained motionless throughout their investigation of the basement, as if she understood that they were trying to piece together her story. "Easy," Maria called softly into the darkness. "Nobody's going to hurt you." The response was immediate. A low whine, almost musical in its complexity, that seemed to convey more emotion than most humans could express in words. It was a sound of pain, of loneliness, of hope that had been beaten down, but not completely extinguished. Maria took another step forward, and the golden eyes moved slightly, tracking her movement. In the dim light, she could see more of the creature now. The powerful shoulders, the thick coat that was somewhere between brown and gray, the alert ears that twitched at every sound. This was definitely part wolf, but there was something else in her bearing, something that spoke of intelligence far beyond what any normal animal should possess. "She's been watching us this whole time," Rodriguez observed, joining Maria at a respectful distance. Why hasn't she run? It was a good question, one that would haunt Maria for weeks to come. Most wild animals would have fled the moment humans arrived, especially after the violence that had occurred here. But Luna seemed to be waiting for something, as if she understood that these humans were different from the ones who had kept her caged. Officer Martinez approached from the entrance, his radio crackling with updates from dispatch. "Animal control is en route," he reported. "ETA, 15 minutes. They're bringing tranquilizer equipment and a transport cage." "Cancel that," Maria said quickly, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. "Tell them to stand by, but don't come in yet." Rodriguez gave her a questioning look, but he had learned to trust her instincts over their years as partners. Maria couldn't explain it, but something told her that approaching Luna with tranquilizer guns and cages would be the worst possible mistake they could make. Instead, she sat down cross-legged on the concrete floor, placing her weapon on the ground beside her in a gesture of peace. "Tell me what happened here, girl," she said softly, though she knew the animal couldn't understand her words. But Luna seemed to understand something. The golden eyes blinked slowly, and the creature took a tentative step forward into the light. What Maria saw took her breath away. Luna was beautiful in the way that only truly wild things could be, but her beauty was marked by suffering. Scars crisscrossed her muzzle and shoulders, evidence of fights and abuse that made Maria's jaw clench with anger. Her coat was patchy in places where mange or stress had taken its toll. But it was her eyes that told the real story. Intelligent, haunted eyes that had seen too much and trusted too little. "Look at her," Rodriguez whispered. "She's not afraid of us." He was right. Luna showed no signs of the fear or aggression that would be normal for a wild animal cornered by humans. Instead, she seemed curious, cautious, but not hostile, as if she was trying to decide whether these particular humans could be trusted. Maria reached slowly into her pocket and pulled out a protein bar from her emergency kit. She unwrapped it carefully, making no sudden movements, and placed it on the floor halfway between herself and Luna. For a long moment, nothing happened. Luna's nostrils flared as she caught the scent of food, but she didn't move toward it. Her eyes remained fixed on Maria's face, as if she was trying to read something there. Then, slowly and deliberately, Luna walked forward. Not to the food, but directly to Maria. She stopped just out of arm's reach and sat down, her tail curled around her feet, her head tilted in what could only be described as a questioning gesture. "She wants to know if she can trust you," Rodriguez said quietly, his voice filled with wonder. Maria felt tears prick at her eyes as she looked into Luna's face. This wasn't just an animal that had been abused and forgotten. This was a thinking, feeling being who had somehow survived something terrible and was now trying to figure out if a nightmare was finally over. "I don't know what they did to you," Maria whispered, "but I promise you, we're different." Luna's ears perked forward at the sound of her voice, and for the first time since they had arrived at the warehouse, her tail wagged. Just once, a tentative movement that spoke of hope beginning to overcome fear. The crime scene around them continued its grim work, but in that moment, Maria forgot about the bodies, the drugs, and the violence that had brought them all together. She was focused entirely on the extraordinary creature sitting before her, and the feeling that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't yet imagine. Outside, the sirens of animal control vehicles could be heard approaching, but Maria held up a hand to stop Rodriguez from acknowledging them. She had made a decision that would surprise everyone, including herself. "Call the captain," she said, never taking her eyes off Luna. "Tell him we need a meeting, and tell him to bring someone from the K9 unit." "Maria, what are you thinking?" She looked at her partner, then back at Luna, who was still watching her with those intelligent golden eyes. "I'm thinking that maybe the Vipers weren't the only ones who recognized what she could do. Maybe it's time law enforcement had a different kind of partner." The conference room at the police station had never felt smaller to Maria as she faced Captain Williams, Sergeant Davis from the K9 unit, Dr. Jennifer Hayes from the city's Animal Behavior Institute, and Assistant District Attorney Karen Mitchell. Luna sat calmly beside Maria's chair, her presence causing obvious tension among everyone except Maria herself. "Let me get this straight," Captain Williams said, his voice carrying the weight of 25 years in law enforcement. "You want to propose that we train a wolf hybrid, an animal that was involved in 3 deaths, to work as a police dog?" "She wasn't involved in those deaths, Captain. She was defending herself after being tortured and used as a guard animal by drug dealers. The evidence clearly shows that she only acted when her captors tried to tranquilize her during a gang dispute." Dr. Hayes leaned forward, her notebook filled with observations she had been making since Luna's arrival. "Detective Santos, I've been studying Luna's behavior for the past 3 days, and I have to agree with your assessment. Her aggression was situational and defensive. Since being removed from that environment, she's shown remarkable adaptability and emotional intelligence." ADA Mitchell shuffled through the legal documents spread before her. "Even if that's true, the liability issues alone could shut down this entire department. If this animal injures a civilian or another officer, the city could face lawsuits that would bankrupt us. Karen, we already use police dogs that are trained to bite, to track, to apprehend suspects," Maria argued. "The only difference is that Luna has capabilities that far exceed anything we've ever seen in a conventional canine." Sergeant Davis, who had been silent throughout most of the meeting, finally spoke up. "What kind of capabilities are we talking about?" Maria had been hoping he would ask. She had spent the last 72 hours working with Luna, and what she had discovered still amazed her. "Watch this," she said, standing up and walking to the far end of the conference room. She placed a small evidence bag containing marijuana behind a filing cabinet, completely hidden from view. Then she returned to Luna's side and gave a simple hand signal she had taught the animal just that morning. Luna immediately stood and began working the room systematically. Her nose led her directly to the filing cabinet, where she sat and looked back at Maria with an expression that clearly said, "Found it." "Standard drug detection," Davis said, though his tone suggested he was impressed. "How long did it take you to teach her that?" "About 20 minutes, Maria replied, enjoying the shocked silence that followed. But that's not the impressive part. She walked to the opposite side of the room and sat in a chair with her back to Luna. Without looking at the animal, she raised her left hand and made a subtle gesture with her fingers. Luna immediately moved to the window and positioned herself so she could see both Maria and the door simultaneously. When Maria changed her hand position slightly, Luna moved to a different location that provided an even better tactical advantage. "Silent positioning commands," Maria explained, still not looking at Luna. She understands complex tactical concepts without any verbal communication. Dr. Hayes was scribbling notes furiously. The level of cognitive processing this demonstrates is extraordinary. She's not just following commands. She's understanding the strategic purpose behind them. "There's more," Maria continued. She stood up and moved to where ADA Mitchell was sitting. Without any signal from Maria, Luna smoothly positioned herself between Maria and the room's entrance, her body language alert but not threatening. "Personal protection instinct," Davis observed. "She's reading body language and environmental cues to anticipate threats." Captain Williams leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "This is all very impressive, Santos, but impressive doesn't overcome the fundamental problems with your proposal. This animal has no training pedigree, no certification, no background that would qualify her for police work." "With respect, Captain, neither did Rex when we first brought him in," Maria replied, referring to the department's most successful drug detection dog. "Every police dog starts as an untrained animal with potential. The difference is that Luna has already demonstrated abilities that would take most dogs months or years to develop." Dr. Hayes looked up from her notes. "Captain, I've worked with military and police dogs for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like Luna's natural aptitude for this work. Her intelligence level is off the charts, and her loyalty bonding process is remarkably accelerated." "Loyalty bonding?" ADA Mitchell asked. the process by which a working dog develops an unbreakable connection with their handler, Dr. Hayes explained. It usually takes 6 to 12 months of intensive training. Luna formed a primary bond with Detective Santos in less than 3 days. Maria felt a warmth in her chest at those words. It was true. She and Luna had developed a connection that went beyond anything she had experienced with previous canine partners. The animal seemed to anticipate her thoughts, to understand not just her commands but her intentions. The legal issues remain, ADA Mitchell insisted. If we're going to pursue this, we need protocols, certifications, and safeguards that probably don't exist for this type of animal. Then we create them, Captain Williams said quietly, surprising everyone in the room. Sergeant Davis, what would it take to put Luna through an accelerated training program? Davis considered the question carefully. Normally, police dog training takes 4 to 6 months. But given Luna's apparent abilities, we might be able to certify her in specialized areas within 8 to 10 weeks. The bigger question is whether Detective Santos is willing to commit to the training program. All eyes turned to Maria. The training would be intensive, requiring her to spend virtually every waking hour with Luna for the next 2 months. It would mean giving up weekends, vacations, and most of her social life. But as she looked down at Luna, who was watching her with those intelligent golden eyes, she knew there was only one answer. "I'm in," she said simply. "There's one more thing we need to discuss," Dr. Hayes interjected. Luna's wolf genetics give her certain advantages, but they also create unique challenges. Wolves have a much stronger pack instinct than dogs, which means her loyalty will be absolute, but it also means she may have difficulty accepting command from anyone other than Detective Santos. "Is that a problem?" Captain Williams asked. "It could be in certain situations. Most police dogs can work with multiple handlers if necessary. Luna will likely be a one-person animal." Maria felt Luna's warm body pressed against her leg, and she placed her hand on the animal's head. The thick fur was soft under her fingers, and she could feel the steady rhythm of Luna's breathing. The thought of being permanently partnered with this extraordinary creature didn't frighten her. It excited her. "I can live with that," she said. ADA Mitchell closed her folder with a sigh. "If we're really going to do this, I'll need to work with the city's risk management team to develop liability protocols. And we'll need to start with a limited trial period." "How limited?" Captain Williams asked. 6 months. Luna works only with Detective Santos, only on specific types of cases that we pre-approve, and only after she passes every certification test we can throw at her. "What types of cases?" Maria asked. "Drug detection, evidence recovery, and missing persons," Mitchell replied. "No apprehensions, no crowd control, nothing that puts her in direct contact with the public until we see how she performs." It wasn't everything Maria had hoped for, but it was a start. She looked around the room at the faces of her colleagues and supervisors, seeing the mixture of skepticism and curiosity that her proposal had created. "There's something else you should all know," she said finally. "Yesterday, I took Luna to visit the warehouse where we found her, just to see how she would react. And Dr. Hayes prompted. She led me straight to a hidden compartment we had missed in our initial search. Inside, we found 2 kilos of pure heroin and a laptop containing the financial records for the entire Viper operation." The silence that followed was profound. Even ADA Mitchell looked impressed. "She knew it was there," Maria continued. "Somehow, during her captivity, she had observed where they hid their most valuable assets. She remembered, and she was able to communicate that information to me without any specific training in evidence recovery." Sergeant Davis whistled low under his breath. "That's not just intelligence, that's strategic thinking." "It gets better," Maria said. "The laptop contained information that led to the arrests of 12 Viper gang members, including their leadership. Luna didn't just solve the warehouse murders. She helped us dismantle their entire operation." Captain Williams stood up slowly, his decision made. "Sergeant Davis, I want you to design the most comprehensive training program we've ever attempted. Dr. Hayes, I want weekly progress reports on Luna's development. ADA Mitchell, give me the legal framework we need to make this work. He turned to Maria, his expression serious but hopeful. Detective Santos, you've got your 6 months. But understand this. If Luna fails, if there's any incident that puts the public or other officers at risk, this experiment ends immediately. Understood, Captain. Good. When do you start training? Maria looked down at Luna, who had remained perfectly calm throughout the entire meeting, as if she understood every word that had been spoken. The animal's tail wagged once, a subtle sign of approval that made Maria smile. We already have, she said. As the meeting broke up and the various participants filed out of the conference room, Maria remained seated with Luna beside her. The magnitude of what they were about to attempt was beginning to sink in. No police department in the country had ever attempted to train a wolf hybrid for active duty. They would be creating protocols, testing boundaries, and challenging assumptions that had governed law enforcement for decades. But as she looked into Luna's intelligent eyes, Maria felt a confidence that surprised her. This wasn't just about training an unusual animal. This was about recognizing and nurturing a natural talent that could revolutionize how police work was done. Dr. Hayes approached before leaving, her expression thoughtful. Detective Santos, there's something else you should know about Luna's psychology. What's that? Wolves in the wild typically form lifelong bonds with their pack members. Once Luna commits to you as her partner, that bond will be unbreakable. She'll literally put her life on the line to protect you. Maria felt a chill run down her spine, not of fear, but of responsibility. And what does she expect from me in return? The same level of loyalty and commitment. In Luna's mind, you're not just her handler. You're her pack leader, her family. She'll need to know that you'll never abandon her, never betray her trust. I won't, Maria said firmly, her hand stroking Luna's head. We're partners now. Dr. Hayes smiled. I believe you are. And I think you're both going to surprise a lot of people. As the psychologist left the room, Maria remained with Luna in the quiet conference room. Outside, the normal sounds of the police station continued. Phones ringing, officers discussing cases, the constant hum of activity that defined law enforcement. But inside the conference room, Detective and Wolf sat in comfortable silence, both of them sensing that their lives had just taken a turn towards something extraordinary. The real work was about to begin, and neither of them could predict where it would lead. Luna rested her head against Maria's leg, a gesture of trust that spoke volumes. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The police training facility at dawn was a place of quiet intensity, where the morning air carried the sounds of barking dogs and shouted command from the K-9 training area. Maria arrived with Luna at 5:30 a.m., 30 minutes before their scheduled session with Sergeant Davis, wanting to give Luna time to adjust to the new environment. The facility was impressive, a sprawling complex of obstacle courses, search buildings, and specialized training areas designed to simulate every possible scenario a police dog might encounter. But as Maria walked Luna through the grounds, she realized that none of the existing programs had been designed with a wolf hybrid in mind. She's bigger than I expected, Sergeant Davis said as he approached them across the training field. His voice carried the authority of someone who had spent 20 years working with police dogs, but Maria could hear an undertone of uncertainty that hadn't been there during their conference room meeting. Luna was indeed impressive in the morning light. Standing at the shoulder, she was taller than most German shepherds, with a lean, muscular build that spoke of wild genetics and natural athleticism. Her coat was thick and lustrous, the gray-brown coloring providing natural camouflage that would be useful in urban environments. How much does she weigh? Davis asked, circling Luna at a respectful distance, while the animal watched him with calm interest. About 85 pounds, Maria replied. Dr. Hayes thinks she'll reach 90 to 95 when she's fully mature. And she's only 2 years old? According to the veterinary records we found at the warehouse, yes. Davis nodded thoughtfully. Most police dogs didn't begin serious training until they were at least 18 months old, and they weren't considered fully mature until 3 or 4 years. Luna was at the perfect age for intensive training, but her wild genetics meant they were working without a roadmap. Let's start with basic obedience and see what she already knows, Davis suggested, leading them to a fenced training area. What they discovered over the next hour amazed them both. Luna not only knew standard commands like sit, stay, and come, but she executed them with a precision that suggested military-level training. More impressive was her ability to follow complex multi-step commands and to maintain focus for extended periods without any signs of distraction. Someone taught her well, Davis observed as Luna completed a challenging obstacle course on her first attempt. The question is who? Maria had been wondering the same thing. The gang members who had kept Luna captive didn't seem like the type to invest in sophisticated training. Yet Luna's skills suggested months of intensive work with a professional handler. Maybe we'll never know, Maria replied. The important thing is that she has the foundation we need to build on. Their morning session was interrupted by the arrival of Captain Williams, who had come to observe Luna's first official training day. He stood at the fence line with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable as he watched Luna navigate a series of search exercises that would have challenged dogs with months of training. "How's she doing?" he called to Davis. "Better than any rookie I've ever worked with," Davis replied honestly. "Her problem-solving abilities are off the charts." To demonstrate, Davis set up a complex scenario where Luna needed to locate a hidden object in a building with multiple rooms and distractions. Most dogs required several attempts to master this type of search, but Luna approached it methodically, room by room, until she found the target and returned to Maria with the classic police dog indication pose. "Time," Captain Williams asked. 3 minutes, 40 seconds, Davis replied, checking his stopwatch. "The department record is 4 minutes, 10 seconds. Captain Williams said nothing, but Maria saw him make a note in the small notebook he always carried. She had the feeling that Luna was exceeding his expectations, which both relieved and worried her. High expectations meant high pressure, and they had a long way to go before Luna would be ready for active duty. The second week of training introduced Luna to more specialized skills. Drug detection came naturally to her, as Maria had already discovered, but Sergeant Davis wanted to test the full range of her abilities. They started with the standard detection substances: marijuana, cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine, but Luna's performance suggested she could handle much more complex challenges. "Try this," Davis said one afternoon, presenting Luna with a scenario that had stumped several experienced police dogs. Multiple substances were hidden throughout a mock apartment, but only one of them was illegal. Luna needed to identify the correct substance while ignoring the legal distractions. Luna entered the apartment and began her systematic search. Maria watched through the observation window as the animal moved purposefully through the rooms, her nose working constantly, but her body language remaining calm and focused. She passed by coffee grounds, spice containers, and cleaning supplies without hesitation, heading directly to a bedroom where she sat beside a dresser and looked back at Maria. "She found it," Maria called to Davis. "Bottom drawer of the dresser." Davis checked his notes and nodded. 2 ounces of cocaine hidden inside a sealed container of baby powder. How did she know to ignore everything else? "Intelligence," Maria replied simply. "She understands what we're looking for." But Luna's abilities went beyond simple detection. During the 3rd week of training, they discovered that she could track scents that were days old, follow trails through environments where dozens of other people had walked, and even distinguish between similar scents with an accuracy that bordered on the supernatural. "I've never seen anything like it," Davis admitted to Maria as they watched Luna track a week-old scent trail through a busy parking lot. "She's not just following her nose. She's analyzing and interpreting scent information in ways that shouldn't be possible." The breakthrough came during the 4th week, when they began testing Luna's abilities in real-world scenarios. They were working on a missing person exercise when Luna suddenly stopped following the designated trail and began moving in a different direction entirely. "She's going off course," Davis called out, but Maria held up a hand to stop him. "Let her work," she replied, trusting Luna's instincts over the predetermined exercise. Luna led them to a maintenance shed behind the training building, where she sat and gave her indication signal. Inside the shed, they found Officer Martinez, who was supposed to be participating in a different training exercise entirely. "How did she know I was here?" Martinez asked in amazement. "I've been hiding in here for 20 minutes. She wasn't tracking the exercise scent, Maria realized. She was tracking you specifically. Davis stared at Luna with new respect. She can differentiate between individual human scents and track specific people even when they're not part of the exercise. But how did she know to look for Martinez? Maria knelt beside Luna and studied the animal's intelligent face. Because she's been observing our training sessions. She knows all the officers who work with us, and when she picked up Martinez's scent in an area where he shouldn't have been, she investigated. It was a level of reasoning that went beyond simple training or instinct. Luna was thinking, analyzing, and making decisions based on complex environmental factors that most humans would miss. Word of Luna's extraordinary abilities began to spread throughout the department. Officers would find excuses to visit the training facility, hoping to catch a glimpse of the legendary wolf dog who was rewriting the rules of police work. Some were skeptical, others were curious, but most were simply amazed by what they witnessed. Detective Rodriguez visited during the 5th week and watched Luna demonstrate her silent communication abilities, using nothing but hand signals and body language. Maria guided Luna through a complex tactical exercise that simulated searching a building for armed suspects. "It's like watching a dance," Rodriguez observed. "She knows what you're thinking before you think it." "It's more than that," Maria replied. "She's anticipating what I need before I realize I need it." The observation was proven accurate when Luna suddenly positioned herself between Maria and a door that hadn't been part of their exercise. A moment later, Officer Chun emerged from that same door, having been unaware that he was interrupting a training session. "She knew he was coming," Davis said in wonderment. "She heard him approaching and moved to protect you automatically." Dr. Hayes continued her weekly observations, documenting Luna's progress with the enthusiasm of a scientist who had discovered a new species. Her reports to Captain Williams were filled with technical language about cognitive development, pack bonding, and advanced behavioral patterns that no one had seen in a working animal. "Luna is operating at a level of intelligence that challenges our understanding of canine capabilities," she wrote in her 5th-week report. "Her ability to process complex information, make independent decisions, and adapt to new situations suggests cognitive abilities that may exceed those of some primates." But it wasn't just Luna's intelligence that impressed the observers. It was her emotional connection with Maria that truly set her apart from other police dogs. The bond between them had deepened into something that went beyond handler and animal. They had become genuine partners in every sense of the word. Maria found herself thinking about Luna constantly, even during her off-duty hours. She worried about the animal's comfort, her emotional well-being, and her adaptation to the police environment. In return, Luna showed a level of devotion that amazed everyone who witnessed it. One evening, as Maria was preparing to leave the training facility, Luna suddenly became agitated. She paced back and forth, whining softly and repeatedly looking toward the parking lot. Maria followed her gaze, but saw nothing unusual. "What is it, girl?" she asked, but Luna's distress only increased. 5 minutes later, Maria discovered that her car had been broken into. Nothing had been stolen, but someone had clearly searched through her vehicle, leaving behind evidence of their intrusion. She knew, Sergeant Davis said when Maria reported the incident. Somehow, she sensed that something was wrong before you could see it. Security cameras confirmed that Luna had begun showing signs of distress at the exact moment an unknown individual had approached Maria's car in the parking lot. The intruder had fled when he spotted the security cameras, but Luna had detected his presence and recognized it as a threat to her partner. Her protective instincts are incredible, Dr. Hayes noted in her report. But what's remarkable is her ability to assess threats that aren't immediately visible. She's processing information from multiple sources: scent, sound, visual cues, even electromagnetic fields, to build a complete picture of her environment. As they entered the 6th week of training, Maria realized that Luna had already exceeded every expectation anyone had set for her. She could detect drugs with near-perfect accuracy, track scents through complex urban environments, follow silent commands in tactical situations, and protect her partner from threats that hadn't yet materialized. But most importantly, she had proven that the bond between human and animal could transcend the traditional boundaries of police work. Luna wasn't just a tool or a weapon. She was a thinking, feeling partner who brought her own intelligence and instincts to their shared mission. "She's ready," Davis told Captain Williams during their weekly progress meeting. "I've never certified a dog this quickly, but Luna has mastered everything we can teach her." "What about the specialized certifications?" Captain Williams asked. "All passed. Drug detection, evidence recovery, missing persons, and tactical support." She scored perfect or near perfect on every test. Captain Williams looked at the stack of evaluation reports on his desk, each one documenting Luna's extraordinary progress. "And Detective Santos?" "They work together like they've been partners for years," Davis replied. "The communication between them is unlike anything I've seen in 20 years of K-9 training." "Then, it's time to put them to work," Captain Williams decided. "Real cases, real situations. Let's see what they can do when it counts." Maria felt a thrill of excitement mixed with nervousness. The training had been intensive and rewarding, but now they would be tested in the real world, where mistakes could have serious consequences, and Luna's unique abilities would be put to the ultimate test. As she looked at Luna, sleeping peacefully in her custom-designed kennel at the training facility, Maria felt a surge of pride and affection for her extraordinary partner. Tomorrow, they would begin their active duty assignments, and she couldn't wait to see what challenges awaited them. The call came in at 6:23 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in October, 3 months after Luna had completed her certification training. Maria was having coffee in the break room when dispatch announced that a 7-year-old girl named Emma Chun had gone missing from her family's apartment sometime during the night. "Santos, Rodriguez, you're up," Captain Williams called across the bullpen. "Missing child, possible abduction. The family is waiting at the scene." Maria felt her heart rate increase as she grabbed her gear. This would be Luna's first real case, her first opportunity to prove that all their training had been worthwhile. As she walked toward the parking garage, Luna fell into step beside her, the animal's demeanor alert and focused as if she sensed the importance of what they were about to do. "Ready for this, girl?" Maria asked as they approached the patrol car. Luna's tail wagged once, a subdued acknowledgement that seemed to say she understood they weren't training anymore. The Chin family lived in a modest apartment complex on the east side of the city, a neighborhood that had seen its share of crime, but was generally considered safe for families. When Maria and Rodriguez arrived, they found patrol officers interviewing the parents while crime scene technicians processed Emma's bedroom. Mrs. Chun was crying softly as she spoke with Officer Martinez. "She was in her room when I checked at 11 o'clock, she said through her tears. "This morning, her bed was empty and the window was open." Maria listened to the preliminary report while Luna remained at her side, taking in the chaos of the scene with calm observation. The apartment was on the 2nd floor, and Emma's bedroom window opened onto a fire escape that provided easy access from the alley below. There were no signs of struggle in the room, but a stuffed animal that Emma's mother insisted never left her daughter's side was missing. "How long has she been gone?" Maria asked Martinez. Parents discovered she was missing at 6 a.m. when they went to wake her for school. Based on their timeline, she could have been taken any time after 11 p.m. last night. That meant Emma had potentially been missing for 7 hours, a critical timeline in any missing child case. Maria knew that the first 24 hours were crucial, but the first 12 hours were often the difference between finding a child alive or not finding them at all. "Any witnesses?" Rodriguez asked. We're canvassing the building now, but so far nobody saw or heard anything unusual. Maria studied Emma's bedroom, noting the open window and the careful way the bed covers had been arranged to make it look like the child was still sleeping. This wasn't a random kidnapping. Someone had planned this carefully and wanted to buy themselves as much time as possible before the disappearance was discovered. "I'd like to bring Luna in to examine the scene," Maria said to the lead detective, who nodded his permission. Luna's behavior changed the moment they entered Emma's bedroom. Her nostrils flared as she processed the complex mixture of scents in the small room, and her ears swiveled constantly as she gathered auditory information that humans couldn't detect. But instead of beginning a typical search pattern, Luna did something unexpected. She walked directly to Emma's bed and lay down on the floor beside it, her head resting on her paws, her eyes closed as if she was concentrating deeply. "What's she doing?" Mrs. Chun asked, her voice filled with hope and confusion. "She's learning," Maria replied, though she wasn't entirely sure what Luna was learning. The animal remained motionless for nearly 5 minutes, longer than any search dog would normally spend in one location. Finally, Luna stood and walked to the open window. She placed her front paws on the windowsill and extended her head outside, her nose working constantly as she tested the air currents. Then, she turned back to Maria with an expression that clearly communicated urgency. "She's got something," Maria announced to the room. "We need to follow her lead." They made their way down to the alley behind the apartment building, where Luna immediately began tracking. But instead of following a straight line away from the building, she moved in a complex pattern that seemed to spiral outward from the base of the fire escape. "She's tracking multiple scents," Rodriguez observed, "like she's trying to figure out which one is the right one." Maria watched Luna's behavior carefully, noting the subtle changes in the animal's body language that indicated different levels of interest in various scent trails. After 10 minutes of methodical searching, Luna suddenly stopped and looked back at Maria with a focused intensity that indicated a strong find. This way, Maria called to the other officers as Luna began moving purposefully down the alley toward the street. The trail led them through a maze of side streets and residential blocks, with Luna maintaining a steady pace that suggested she was confident in the scent she was following. But after 20 minutes of tracking, Luna stopped at a busy intersection and began circling, her frustration evident as the trail seemed to disappear. "Vehicle pickup," Rodriguez said grimly. "Whoever took her had a car waiting." Maria felt a sinking sensation in her stomach. If Emma had been taken in a vehicle, Luna's tracking abilities would be useless, and they would be back to traditional investigative methods that took time they didn't have. But Luna wasn't giving up. Instead of abandoning the search, she began moving in wider circles around the intersection, her nose close to the ground as she searched for any trace of the scent trail. "She's looking for where they went," Maria realized. Even if Emma was put in a car, there might be places where the vehicle stopped. It was a long shot, but Luna seemed determined to continue the search. For the next hour, they methodically worked their way through the surrounding neighborhood, with Luna checking every location where a vehicle might have paused: stop signs, traffic lights, parking areas. Their persistence paid off when Luna suddenly became animated near a gas station 6 blocks from the intersection. She led them directly to a specific parking spot behind the building and gave her indication signal, sitting and looking back at Maria with obvious excitement. "Something happened here," Maria told the station manager, who had come out to see what the police were doing on his property. "Do you have security cameras?" "Yeah, but they only record the pump area, not back here." "What about inside the store? Can we see who was here last night?" The security footage from the gas station showed a white van pulling into the rear parking area at 12:47 a.m. A man in dark clothing got out and went into the store where he purchased energy drinks and snack food. The camera angle didn't show his face clearly, but it captured the van's license plate. "Run those plates," Rodriguez instructed dispatch while Maria continued working with Luna around the gas station. Luna had found something else. Behind the building, near a dumpster, she had located what appeared to be a small piece of fabric caught on a metal edge. The fabric was pink with small unicorn patterns, exactly matching the pajamas Mrs. Chun had described Emma wearing when she was taken. She fought back, Maria said, examining the tear in the fabric. Emma tried to get away from whoever took her. The license plate trace came back within minutes. The van was registered to a man named David Pierce, who had a previous conviction for attempted kidnapping and lived in a trailer park on the outskirts of the city. "We've got an address," Rodriguez announced. "Patrol units are already en route." But Maria wasn't satisfied with waiting for backup. Every minute that passed put Emma in greater danger, and Luna's agitation suggested that the trail was still fresh enough to follow. "Can Luna track from here?" Rodriguez asked, noting Maria's hesitation. "I don't know, but we have to try." Luna seemed to understand the urgency of the situation. When Maria gave her the command to continue searching, the animal began working the area around the gas station with renewed intensity. After a few minutes, she picked up a scent trail leading away from the parking area toward the highway. The trail was faint and broken, probably carried by wind currents from the van as it traveled, but Luna followed it with determination that amazed the officers accompanying them. They tracked the scent along the highway for nearly 2 miles before Luna led them to an off-ramp that headed toward the trailer park where David Pierce lived. "She's actually following a vehicle trail," Rodriguez said in disbelief. "I've never heard of a dog being able to do that." "Luna's not just any dog," Maria replied, her confidence in her partner growing with each success. The trailer park was a collection of aging mobile homes arranged along dirt roads with minimal landscaping. When they arrived, backup units had already surrounded Pierce's trailer, but the suspect's van was nowhere to be seen. "He's not here," Sergeant Davis reported over the radio. "Neighbors say he left about an hour ago with someone in his van." Maria's heart sank. They were so close, but Emma was still missing, and Pierce was on the move with a significant head start. "Let Luna work the scene," she suggested to the incident commander. "Maybe she can tell us something the neighbors missed." Luna's examination of Pierce's trailer was thorough and systematic. She spent several minutes at the front door, gathering scent information, then moved around the perimeter of the mobile home with obvious purpose. At the back of the trailer, Luna became extremely agitated. She paced back and forth along a small section of ground, whining softly and repeatedly looking back at Maria with an expression of distress that was heartbreaking to witness. "She was here," Maria announced to the other officers. Emma was definitely here. Crime scene technicians immediately began processing the area Luna had indicated, and they quickly found evidence that confirmed her assessment: fresh tire tracks, footprints that were consistent with a child's size, and traces of the same pink fabric they had found at the gas station. "But where did they go?" Rodriguez asked. Luna was already answering that question. She had moved away from the trailer and was following a new scent trail that led toward the back of the trailer park. This trail was stronger and more recent than the highway tracking had been, and Luna followed it with obvious confidence. The trail led them to a wooded area behind the trailer park, where an old dirt road provided access to an abandoned industrial site. Luna's pace quickened as they followed the path, and Maria felt a growing sense of urgency that seemed to be transmitted directly from her partner. "Radio for more backup," she told Rodriguez. "And tell them to come quiet, no sirens." They approached the industrial site carefully, using the abandoned buildings as cover while Luna continued to lead them toward whatever she had found. The scent trail was so strong now that even Maria could occasionally catch traces of automotive exhaust and human activity. Luna led them to a large warehouse building where the white van was parked behind a loading dock. Through dirty windows, they could see movement inside the building, and Luna's agitation confirmed that their targets were inside. "This is it," Maria whispered into her radio. "We've got the suspect vehicle, and Luna indicates the subject is inside the building." The tactical team's approach was carefully coordinated, with Luna and Maria providing real-time intelligence about the positions of people inside the warehouse. Luna could distinguish between adult and child scents, confirming that Emma was alive and giving the team crucial information about where she was being held. The arrest of David Pierce was swift and without incident. When officers breached the warehouse, they found him sleeping in a makeshift campsite he had established in one corner of the building. Emma was found in a separate area, frightened but unharmed, clutching her stuffed animal and crying for her parents. "How did you find us?" Pierce asked in amazement as officers placed him under arrest. "We were miles from anywhere." "Good police work," Rodriguez replied. But his eyes were on Luna, who was gently approaching Emma with the careful movements she used around frightened children. Emma stopped crying the moment she saw Luna. Something about the animal's calm presence seemed to reassure the little girl that her nightmare was finally over. "Is that a wolf?" Emma asked in wonder, her fear momentarily forgotten. "She's a police dog," Maria replied gently. "Her name is Luna, and she helped us find you." Emma reached out tentatively and touched Luna's soft fur, her small hand trembling with residual fear and exhaustion. Luna remained perfectly still, allowing the child to find comfort in her presence while the paramedics checked Emma for injuries. The reunion between Emma and her parents was emotional and joyful, but Maria found herself focusing on Luna's reaction to the successful resolution. The animal seemed to understand that they had accomplished their mission, her tail wagging with quiet satisfaction as she watched the Chun family embrace. "Outstanding work," Captain Williams said later as he reviewed the case reports. "Luna's performance exceeded every expectation." "She saved that little girl's life," Maria replied simply. "Without her tracking abilities, we never would have found Emma in time." Dr. Hayes was equally impressed when she interviewed Maria about Luna's first case. "The level of problem-solving she demonstrated is remarkable. Following a vehicle trail by scent, distinguishing between different human subjects, adapting her search methods when traditional tracking failed. These are capabilities that redefine what we think police dogs can accomplish." But for Maria, the most important moment had come when Emma touched Luna's fur and found comfort in her presence. It confirmed what Maria had suspected all along. Luna wasn't just an extraordinarily capable police dog. She was a bridge between the human and animal worlds, bringing unique strengths and instinct to law enforcement that could make the difference between tragedy and triumph. As they drove back to the station that afternoon, Luna resting peacefully in the back of the patrol car, Maria felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond solving a single case. They had proven that their partnership could work in the real world under pressure when a child's life hung in the balance. "Good girl, Luna," Maria said softly. "You done good." Luna's tail wagged once in acknowledgement, and Maria knew that this was just the beginning of what they could accomplish together. 6 months after Emma Chen's rescue, Maria stood before a packed auditorium at the National Law Enforcement Convention in Denver, Luna sitting calmly beside the podium as hundreds of police officers, federal agents, and K-9 handlers listened to their story. The presentation was titled Redefining Police K-9 Capabilities, the Luna Protocol, and it represented the culmination of everything they had accomplished together. "When we first encountered Luna in that warehouse," Maria began, "none of us could have imagined how profoundly she would change our understanding of what's possible in police work." In the months following the Chun case, Luna and Maria had become legendary within their department and beyond. Word of Luna's extraordinary abilities had spread through law enforcement networks across the country, bringing visitors from federal agencies, military units, and police departments who wanted to observe Luna in action and learn about the training protocols they had developed. Their case clearance rate had been remarkable. In 6 months of active duty, Luna had successfully located missing persons in 8 cases, discovered hidden drug caches that traditional methods had missed in 12 investigations, and provided tactical support in dozens of operations that ranged from routine searches to high-risk arrests. But it wasn't just Luna's success rate that had captured attention. It was the way she approached police work with an intelligence and intuition that challenged traditional assumptions about animal capabilities. "Let me show you what Luna can do," Maria said to the convention audience, gesturing for Luna to join her at the center of the stage. The demonstration began simply enough. Maria placed several evidence bags containing different substances around the auditorium, then gave Luna a single command to search. Luna methodically worked the room, identifying not just the location of each item, but returning to Maria with a specific indication for each type of substance she had found. "Standard drug detection," Maria explained as Luna completed the exercise. "But watch what happens when we add complexity." She had arranged for several audience members to hide personal items throughout the venue before the presentation. Without any knowledge of what had been hidden or where, Maria gave Luna a command to find anything that doesn't belong. Luna began a systematic search of the auditorium, but instead of simply locating the hidden items, she approached each audience member who had participated in the setup and led Maria directly to their seats. Only then did she indicate the locations where they had hidden their belongings. She identified the people first, Maria explained to the amazed audience. She understood that finding the objects required identifying who had placed them, then following their scent trails to the hiding spots. The demonstration continued with increasingly complex scenarios that showcased Luna's problem-solving abilities, her capacity for independent decision-making, and her ability to communicate complex information to her human partner through subtle changes in body language and behavior. Dr. Jennifer Hayes, who had been documenting Luna's development from the beginning, presented her research findings to the scientific community. Her papers on Luna's cognitive abilities had been published in veterinary and behavioral science journals, contributing to a growing understanding of the untapped potential in human-animal partnerships. Luna represents a paradigm shift in our thinking about working animals, Dr. Hayes explained during her portion of the presentation. Her cognitive processing capabilities suggest that we've only scratched the surface of what's possible when we recognize and nurture exceptional individual talents, regardless of species. The audience included representatives from the FBI's K-9 program, military working dog units, and search and rescue organizations from around the world. All of them were interested in understanding how Luna's training protocols could be adapted for their own programs. "The key insight," Maria continued, "is that Luna's abilities weren't created through training. They were revealed through training. She possessed these capabilities naturally, but it took the right environment and approach to help her express them." This distinction had become central to what law enforcement agencies were calling the Luna Protocol, a training philosophy that emphasized recognizing individual animal potential rather than forcing all working dogs through standardized programs. Several agencies had already begun implementing modified versions of Luna's training approach with remarkable results. While no other animal had demonstrated Luna's specific combination of abilities, many dogs were showing enhanced performance when training programs were customized to their individual strengths and cognitive styles. The presentation concluded with a video montage of Luna's most successful cases, narrated by Captain Williams and featuring interviews with the people whose lives have been touched by Luna's work. Emma Chun, now 8 years old and thriving, appeared in the video with her parents. "I wasn't scared when I saw Luna," she told the interviewer. "I knew she was there to help me." The family of an elderly man with Alzheimer's who had wandered away from a care facility spoke about how Luna had found him in a wooded area where traditional search methods had failed. A mother whose teenager had been missing for 3 days credited Luna with locating her daughter at a time when hope was nearly gone. But perhaps the most moving testimony came from Detective Rodriguez, who had watched Maria and Luna's partnership develop from its chaotic beginning in the warehouse. "What Luna taught us," he said in the video, "is that intelligence and loyalty aren't limited by species. She's shown us that when we open our minds to new possibilities, we might find partners we never expected in places we never thought to look." Following the convention presentation, Maria and Luna returned to their regular duties, but their work had taken on a new dimension. They were no longer just solving cases. They were pioneering a new approach to law enforcement that other agencies were studying and adapting. The police academy had established a new program for training officers to work with exceptional animals, using protocols developed from Luna's training experience. Dr. Hayes led the academic component, while Sergeant Davis oversaw the practical applications. "We're not trying to create more Lunas," Davis explained to the first class of trainees. "What we're learning is how to recognize exceptional abilities in individual animals and develop training approaches that enhance rather than suppress their natural talents." The program attracted participants from around the world, bringing together canine handlers, animal behaviorists, and law enforcement officials who shared a common interest in pushing the boundaries of human-animal partnerships. Meanwhile, Luna continued to surprise and inspire everyone who worked with her. Her case files read like a collection of impossible stories that challenged conventional understanding of what police dogs could accomplish. In one case, Luna detected explosives that had been missed by 3 other bomb detection dogs, preventing what could have been a devastating attack on a courthouse. Her ability to distinguish between different types of explosive compounds had proven superior to some electronic detection equipment. In another investigation, Luna had tracked a kidnapper through an urban environment for over 12 hours, following a scent trail that had been contaminated by thousands of other people, vehicle exhaust, and weather conditions that should have made tracking impossible. Perhaps most remarkably, Luna had begun demonstrating what Dr. Hayes termed predictive behavior, the ability to anticipate events before they occurred. She had alerted Maria to potential threats, guided her away from dangerous situations, and provided warnings that had prevented injuries to officers and civilians. "It's like she can read the future," Officer Martinez had commented after Luna prevented him from walking into an ambush during a drug raid. "She knew something was wrong before any of us saw the danger signs." Dr. Hayes theorized that Luna was processing environmental information at a level that allowed her to recognize patterns and predict outcomes with extraordinary accuracy. "She's not psychic," the researcher explained. "She's just gathering and analyzing data from sources that humans can't access: air currents, electromagnetic fields, subsonic vibrations, chemical traces. Her brain processes this information and identifies threats before they become apparent to us." The scientific community had taken notice of Luna's abilities, leading to research partnerships with universities studying animal cognition, sensory perception, and communication. Luna had become a subject of legitimate scientific inquiry, contributing to knowledge that extended far beyond law enforcement applications. But for Maria, the academic recognition and professional accolades were secondary to the daily reality of working with an extraordinary partner who had become central to her life in ways that went beyond their professional relationship. Luna lived with Maria now, having transitioned seamlessly from working animal to family member. The wolf dog's intelligence and emotional depth had created a bond that resembled friendship more than the typical handler-animal relationship. "She's not just my partner," Maria explained to reporters who continued to follow their story. "She's my friend, my protector, and my teacher. Working with Luna has changed how I understand intelligence, loyalty, and the connections that can exist between different species." The relationship had also changed how Luna approached police work. Her protective instincts regarding Maria had evolved into a broader sense of responsibility for public safety that amazed everyone who observed it. During a school visit designed to introduce children to police work, Luna had detected a gas leak that maintenance crews had missed, preventing what could have been a dangerous situation. She had done this not because she was commanded to search for hazards, but because she had independently recognized a threat to the children's safety. Luna has developed her own sense of duty, Dr. Hayes noted in her research. "She's not just following commands anymore. She's actively participating in law enforcement with her own understanding of right and wrong, safety and danger." As their first year as partners came to an end, Maria reflected on how profoundly Luna had changed not just her career, but her understanding of what was possible when different forms of intelligence work together. Luna taught me that intelligence comes in many forms, she said during an interview with a national news magazine. She processes information differently than humans do, but that doesn't make her processing less valuable. In many cases, it makes her more effective than traditional methods. The interview appeared alongside photographs of Luna in action, tracking scents through urban environments, providing tactical support during arrests, comforting victims, and working with such focus and determination that her commitment to the job was unmistakable. But the photograph that meant the most to Maria was a simple shot taken at the police station, showing Luna lying calmly beside Maria's desk while she worked on case reports. It captured the everyday reality of their partnership. Two professionals working together, each contributing their unique strengths to their shared mission. The impact of Luna's work had extended far beyond their own department. Law enforcement agencies across the country had begun recruiting and training animals with exceptional abilities, following protocols developed from Luna's experience. Search and rescue organizations were experimenting with new training methods that emphasized individual animal potential. Military units were reconsidering their approaches to working with animals in specialized operations. Luna started a revolution, Captain Williams observed during Maria's annual performance review. She proved that we've been underutilizing one of our most valuable resources, the unique capabilities that individual animals can bring to law enforcement. The revolution was evident in the steady stream of visitors who came to observe Luna and Maria at work. Federal agents, international law enforcement officials, academic researchers, and military trainers all wanted to understand how Luna's protocols could be adapted for their own programs. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from the community they served. Luna had become a local celebrity, known and loved by children and adults who had encountered her during school visits, community events, and public safety demonstrations. "She's more than a police dog," said Mrs. Chun, Emma's mother, during a community appreciation event. "She's a symbol of hope, of the extraordinary things that can happen when we open our hearts and minds to new possibilities." Luna seemed to understand her role as both working police officer and community ambassador. During public events, she displayed the same intelligence and intuition that made her so effective in law enforcement, but she adapted her behavior to be gentle and reassuring around children and nervous adults. "She knows when she's working and when she's representing," Maria observed. "It's another example of her emotional intelligence. She understands different situations require different approaches." As their second year began, Maria and Luna faced new challenges and opportunities. Their success had led to requests for assistance from federal agencies investigating complex cases that required Luna's unique capabilities. They were being asked to consult on cold cases, missing person investigations, and counterterrorism operations. The work was demanding and sometimes dangerous, but Maria had never felt more fulfilled in her career. Working with Luna had given her access to investigative tools and approaches that she never could have imagined when she first became a police officer. "Every day with Luna is different," she explained to new canine handlers seeking advice about working with exceptional animals. "She continues to surprise me, to show me new capabilities I didn't know she possessed." Our partnership isn't static. It's constantly evolving as we both learn and grow. The evolution was evident in their recent cases, where Luna had begun demonstrating new abilities that expanded their investigative options. She had learned to distinguish between different types of human emotional states through scent, allowing her to identify deception, fear, and aggression in ways that complemented traditional interrogation techniques. In one memorable case, Luna had identified a lying witness not through any command from Maria, but through her own observation of the person's chemical signals. Her indication had led to additional questioning that revealed crucial information in a murder investigation. "She's become a living lie detector," Rodriguez had joked, but Dr. Hayes confirmed that Luna was indeed processing stress hormones and other chemical indicators of deception with remarkable accuracy. The scientific implications were staggering. If Luna's abilities could be understood and replicated in other animals, law enforcement would have access to investigative tools that could revolutionize criminal justice. But for Maria, the scientific breakthroughs were less important than the daily reality of working with a partner who had become irreplaceable. Luna had changed not just how Maria approached police work, but how she understood the relationships between humans and animals, between intelligence and instinct, between loyalty and duty. Working with Luna has been the greatest privilege of my career, Maria reflected as she prepared for another day of investigations, Luna waiting patiently beside their patrol car. She's shown me that heroism comes in many forms, and that sometimes the most extraordinary partners are the ones we never expected to find. As they drove toward their first assignment of the day, a missing person case that would test Luna's tracking abilities in challenging urban terrain, Maria felt the familiar sense of anticipation and confidence that came from working with someone whose capabilities seemed limitless. Luna was alert in the passenger's seat, her golden eyes scanning the streets ahead as if she could already sense the challenges that awaited them. Whatever they encountered, Maria knew they would face it together. Human and wolf, detective and tracker, partners in the truest sense of the word. Their story had become legend within law enforcement, but for Maria and Luna, it was simply their life, a daily adventure in which the impossible had become routine, and the bond between two very different forms of intelligence had created something entirely new in the world of police work.